Bell. I am the CEO of Riverside House, and we want to welcome you all today to our first annual Riverside House Recognition Award Ceremony. So thank you for being here, and just wanted to give you a brief update on Riverside House and who we are and how we started. Riverside House began in 1972. It was a joint venture between Riverside Methodist Church and the Department of Corrections for Dade County. Jack Sandstrom, who was the head of it at that time, and Dean Martin, who was pastor at that time, they came together, got a grant through LEA, and that was the beginning of Riverside House. I came to Riverside House as a result of being a guest of the place that I like to refer to as the Institute of Higher Learning, Dade County Jail. It was there that some people came through and said that the life I was living could be improved upon, and that if I gave it a shot, perhaps I could be helpful, or it could be helpful. So I then prepared to go for my hearing, and at that time, my judge was Judge Jack Turner. I can look at the faces of some of you and tell you don't know Judge Jack Turner because your hair is not quite gray enough. But anyway, Jack Turner was the judge that sentenced me. He sentenced me to 3 years probation and 1 year in the Dade County Stockade. And it was there that I began to learn that there was another way of life. One of the things that happened was I was released on work release and went out and got a job, worked in the community all during from 9 to 5. And every evening I would go back to the Dade County Stockade, and I went there for a year. At the end of that year, I had accumulated $3,500, and for me, that was a lot of money. And I was able to walk out, go back, and I then had a chance to get a job. I worked for the first time legally. And that was a good experience, something that I had to get used to, but it was much better than the alternative, which was locked up. And at that point, I had a chance to do some work. I had a family that I met at a local church that asked me one time, was I interested in pursuing my education? And at that time, I wasn't quite sure I wanted to, but I thought, well, it was better than not getting an education. So I went down to my friend's house, Charlie Babcock, who we'll be talking a little more about today, and told Charlie that I was interested in going to school. And so Charlie went in, pulled out his wallet, wrote me a check for the first semester, and gave me semesters thereafter then for the next 5 years. And I got a degree in music, graduated from FIU, went to Miami-Dade, and I studied operatic music. We'll be having a free concert next week. But it was there that I learned some valuable things, and at that point, Charlie asked me to go down to Riverside House to do a weekly Bible study. Well, I got to Riverside House for a weekly Bible study, and after I got there, I was there probably a year. The then executive director decided that he wanted to go on a 1-year sabbatical. And at that point, the board of directors asked me would I fill in until the director got back. So I worked the first 20 years waiting for him to return. Now I'm in my second 20 years, I'm looking for him. But it has been a rewarding experience. It's been an opportunity for me to give back. And I'm especially grateful today for you all being here because, again, criminal justice and the legal system has been very beneficial to me in my life. It has been very helpful, and it offers a lot to our community. And we want to make sure that we can do everything we can to partner together so that we might continue to see great results happen in our community. We are extremely happy to have our guest speaker who is just coming in. Desmond Meade. Will be telling you a little more about him as we go through the program, but Desmond was a young man that came through our program many years ago, and he was one of the young individuals that helped to shepherd in Amendment 4, which is just passed, and now we're trying to decide how to implement it. But we'll hear a little more from him real shortly. Today, Riverside House is a a 100-bed residential facility. And we now work primarily with federal reentry. We have a 5-year contract with the feds. We've now been servicing that contract for the last 30 years. We're in the process now of renewal because we want to continue to do the work that we're doing here in Miami. Our goal for the next 5 years is that we want to interact and touch the lives of 10,000 returning citizens over the next 5 years, 2,000 per year. And the way we're going to do it is, the first thing we're going to do, as we have done, is establish an alumni program. So everybody who comes through Riverside House, we will follow up with those individuals 3 years after they finish our program to make sure that they're being successful in their reentry. Because at this point, we know that 3 or 4 things that are the reason that they are violated. One, sometimes is housing, dirty urines, lack of housing, employment. And if those are the situations, we think by having an alumni program, when they run into those difficulties, we'll have a chance to come and work with them. Number 2 will be our reporting day center. That will involve computer labs where we'll be able to bring individuals in for job applications, for resume development, and some of those kind of things. And so, in other words, during the day, if a person doesn't have a place to go, they can come to our reporting center, and we can then work with them during that day to get the kind of things that they're in need of in order to be successful in reentry back into the community. And thirdly is our community support groups. We are looking at now having satellite groups throughout Dade County. We have one in place at this point, and we are anticipating 2 more this year. We want to have a support group in every community in Dade County over the next 5 years. So it's going to be through the alumni program, day reporting, and through the community support group. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to do that. And so today, we're really excited about our first annual recognition award because, as I said, there are many folks in here today that have been very instrumental in my life over the last 30 or 40 years. I see at the table here Bishop and Catherine Baskin, who started working with us, how many years ago, Bishop?
55.
About 55 years ago. In other words, once you become my friend, you're my friend for life. And we have many others, and we'll be introducing some of those as we go along. So I don't want to hog up much more of the time because we do want to get you in and out, and we do want you to have a good lunch. And so I'm going to now turn it over to Carrie.
Before I speak, we're going to do an invocation over the meal, and our head chaplain, Chaplain Henson, is going to do that. Thank you.
We pray with me at this time. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is your name in all the earth. We thank you for this day. Thank you for life. Thank you for health. Thank you for strength. Thank you for just allowing us to be able to be here today. We pray, O Father, that you please bless all those that will be recognized. We thank you, Father, for their service. We thank you for their willingness to be able to support this effort. We pray that all things that are said and done, that, Lord, you get praise, you get honor, you get the glory. Continue to lead us and guide us and help us, Lord. When we leave here, we say it was good for us to be here. This is our prayer. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hinton. I guess Mr. Bell's taller than I am. This looks weird, but that's okay. Anyway, I'm development director, head of development at Riverside House, and thank you for doing that. And first of all, I want to thank everyone. I'm really moved by, I guess I need to get closer, by how many people are in this room and how many people are dedicated to reentry, because I was just telling my friend Billy over there that this is a win-win-win, because basically people who get out and come to our place as a transition and we help them get a job, it's a win-win-win because Miami's safer, it's better for their families, so we have less broken families, and also we have a bigger tax base because people are working, contributing to the tax base. And then finally, our tax money is not going to just keep putting people back in prison. So it breaks that vicious cycle. So this event even though it's called our first annual Riverside Recognition Awards, which is what it is, it could also be called the Breaking the Chains event, because we're breaking the chains of that vicious cycle. So I just wanted to point that out. I want to express, on a different note, I want to express my appreciation to the young professionals. They're sitting at different tables, so their names are in the program, but I do want to say John Byrne was the connection here, and I really appreciate him being the lead and getting a lot of the sponsors, so thank you, John. We couldn't have done it without everyone here, literally everyone, but I do want to verbally thank the sponsors. Our gold sponsors are Holland and Knight, Greenberg Trorg, am I going to butcher this? Kozak, Tropin, Throckmorton? Did I say it right? I hope. Close, right? Cleveland and Cindy Bell, thank you. Amball, did I say that correctly? Amball. Incorporated, which is one of our young professionals, their foundation, their family. And PICCO, which I'll tell you about their wonderful technological services afterward. I'd also like to thank our silver sponsors, which is Tannenbaum Harbor Insurance Group. They do our insurance. And then also Kaufman Rawson, which we appreciate. I also want to point out the diversity of the staff and our residents. So yes, we emanated from Riverside United Methodist Church, but we take anyone of any faith. So not only is the staff of all different faiths, but additionally, when people come in, we do an intake and we ask them, what religion are you most comfortable practicing in? So our Christian ministry is there, and they know that if they want to take part in the activities we have. But if they want to go other places, they can. And so I just want to point that out. It's very diverse. And I'm trying to think. Oh, and the last thing I want to say is, as a development professional, I would be very remiss if I didn't say that if you're moved today, you're welcome to donate. So we have text to give cards and brochures on the way out. So I wanted to point that out. And then I want to bring up John Byrne is going to introduce the ceremony.
Hello everybody, how are you doing? To fix the microphone again. Hello everybody, my name is John Byrne. I'm a member of the Young Professionals Board at Riverside, as Carrie mentioned. You know, when Katie Carmen, who's here somewhere I believe, there she is. When Katie Carmen a few years ago asked me to be part of this organization, I readily accepted, not knowing exactly what it involved. But I quickly learned what the mission of Riverside House was. And I think Katie chose me in part because I was an assistant U.S. attorney here in Miami. And so I had experience in the criminal justice system, in particular in the federal criminal justice system. And I remember pretty early on in my tenure on the board, we had a meeting at Riverside. And I remember driving up to Riverside, and a thought sort of popped into my head right before I got out of my car was, I may be seeing some of my former defendants here today as they're transitioning back into the community. And it didn't make me nervous, but what it did was it sort of underscored to me that even someone like myself who was involved in the criminal justice system, I hadn't given a whole lot of thought to what would happen when the people that were involved in my cases, when they finished serving their sentence, where would they go from there? Sort of the what next question. And I think a lot of us in this room here who are involved in the criminal justice system, we're really good at our various silos of responsibility, whether it be prosecuting a case, investigating a case. For a lot of the criminal defense lawyers that are here today, defending people who have been charged with crimes. Obviously for the judges in the room, judging cases. But many of us aren't so good at thinking about the next step. You know, what happens when we're done with our role and these individuals are going to go on with their lives and be transitioning back into the communities. And a lot of us, I know myself, didn't give that a whole lot of thought when we were playing our role in the process. And that's why it's so great that we have an organization like Riverside House, whose sole mission, right, is to sort of ask about that what next, ask that what next question, consider the future of these individuals, right? And what's special about today, I think, is the people we're honoring here today, many of them have roles in the criminal justice system here. We're honoring a judge, we're honoring someone who's involved with the U.S. Attorney's Office, we're honoring a federal public defender. And I think unlike me, who had that blind spot when I was in AUSA, these people we're honoring here today, they actually do ask that what next question of themselves, I think on a daily basis. And they understand how important the mission is here today. And so without further ado, I want to introduce the next speaker, whoever that is in the program, I didn't look, to actually start introducing these awards and recognizing these folks. So thank you, everybody.
If all of the honorees could line up here. Actually, yeah, you know what, originally I was going to do it there, but you're going to be walking through the light. So if all of the honorees, you know who you are, could line up here. And if all of the presenters of the honorees, you also know who you are, could line up here, that would be great. Now the first presenter is Miss Taylor. So I'm going to let her come up and talk about the recipients. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have the awesome assignment to introduce our Volunteer of the Year. Our Volunteer of the Year goes to Tom and Lauren Bayless, faithful members of Potential Church. They serve under the leadership of the Mission Director, Maria. Their involvement in the criminal justice system came a long time ago, when Lauren had the idea that she wanted to teach knitting behind the wall. Well, they had a little issue trying to get that accomplished, and Riverside name came upon. Ever since that day, in 2016, Lauren has been coming to Riverside House faithfully to teach our women how to knit. Well, we went from knitting because I had a little problem catching on with knitting, so I had to introduce the crochet in it. So now we do knitting and crochet. Tom and Lauren have been coming to all our events, serving wholeheartedly, giving their all, and we want to honor them and thank them for their faithfulness. Tom and Lauren Bayless.
The award. I just want to point out that an artist of ours, our original logo, the woman who created that, she's no longer with us, but Dan Caldwell, a talented artist, did a painting for each honoree, and that's the painting, if you could hold it up for people to see.
So we have part of the team here with us from Potential Church. Maria, where are you, Maria?
Running away.
Maria is the mission director of Potential Church, and Emma Bealey and Jamie serve with Lauren in the knitting mission. We're blessed to be able to be at many of the holiday events and serve with the family at Potential, or at Riverside House, which we thoroughly enjoy. We've done a mission Saturday there to help clean and straighten up things, which was more than a little bit interesting. But this is something that as a church and as individuals we enjoy doing. We're going to continue to do it for as long as we're allowed to do it. And I know Ms. Cabell is appreciative of that, and so thank you.
Scripture says in Psalms 86, verse 15, "But you, O Lord, are God, merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness." I'm here today to introduce Yraida Guanipa. Ms. Guanipa is currently pursuing her Doctor of Psychology and Business Management and a specialization in leadership. She's married and has 2 sons. She enjoys reading, writing, and listening to music. Ms. Guanipa served 11 years of incarceration, and by God's grace, she made a decision to no longer take from the community, but to serve the community that she once took from. She has continued to serve to help those who directly or indirectly have been impacted by the judicial system. We are so blessed to have Ms. Yraida Guanipa, a true example of someone that has turned their life around to better our community. After completing her sentence, as well as being a one-time resident at Riverside House, also, she completed her associate degree, bachelor degree, master's degree, and has 5 college certifications, and is on the path to receive her doctorate degree in a year and a half from now. Please join me in introducing to some and presenting to others our honoree today, Mrs. Yraida Guanipa.
I am amazingly honored to be receiving this Unsung Hero Award and earnestly grateful for the recognition I have received to my work. Thank you to the House Committee, organizers, and honorees. I have faced several challenges on my way here, but each one of them has strengthened me to make the person I am today. Winning this award would not have been possible without the inspiration I have received from so many people. For example, my former boss, Attorney Moises Caban, his wife, here today. Riverside team, Mr. Bell, Miss Taylor, Miss Kane, Mr. Henson. YG Institute volunteers, donors, staff, students, and vice president, and my best friend, Elena Lopez. My friends, my family, my mom, Ligia Rojas, my husband, Wilber Guanipa. And the most important ones, my sons, Irwell and Yeswell. They are the ones for which I do this work. They are my life. They are the one that makes my heart beat. My oldest son is here today. And this award is for you, Irwell. Thank you.
So Mr. and Mrs. Bell are introducing an award for, it's Calvin for Mary Babcock, but is Calvin here? Oh, okay, you can come up, Calvin.
I'm going to share first.
Okay, no
We're
problem.
Share.
Here's the award.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to share some facts and personal experiences about an amazing 90 years young woman, Mary Babcock. Mary grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and she graduated from Agnes Scott College with a double major in math and physics. She met her husband, Charles, at Georgia Tech. She graduated from college and was married on the same day. Amazing. They have 4 children and 12 grandchildren. Later in life, Mary learned to play guitar and to speak Spanish. Mary has so many various gifts. One being an avid reader, and the book she rereads the most is The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. Whenever we visit her, I often leave with a book to read and return that one for another one the next time I go. Until recently, she read 3 newspapers a day, but she's now regretting that she can only read one cover to cover. Some days all I read are the headlines. Her mind continues to be sharp. We'll be discussing an issue, and she'll say, "Do you remember the quote from C.S. Lewis or Shakespeare?" She gives the quote, which connects perfectly to our discussion. Conversations with Mary have always been, and still are, delightful, inspiring, and enlightening. Mary also has a very social side, a gift of loving and connecting people, just by her conversation, influencing them to use their gifts to make a difference. Mary creates a comfortable, safe space for people to share. I remember calling her many times to discuss an issue that I was struggling with. She is a great listener, and she would ask questions that required me to reflect and rethink my position. Then she would share some similar experiences she had had in that situation and what she learned. When I left there, I had insights and possible new creative ways to resolve the issue. She was also a wonderful, easygoing hostess. Over the years, she would often call me around 3 to 4 p.m. and say, "Have you started fixing dinner yet?" Well, I never said yes, even if I had, because I knew that whomever was coming to their house was someone we wanted to meet and hear their stories and their ideas. So I'd say, "What's happening, Mary?" "Well, we have this couple in leadership from Washington, D.C., and we would like them to hear Cleve's vision for ex-offenders." Or we have a couple commissioners who are thinking of new ways to impact the city, especially in the poorer communities, and we'd like your input. Or we have some missionaries coming from South Africa to share about racial issues there. We thought you'd want to hear. Some of you have been there at these dinners that are in this room. One I know is Bishop and Billy Catherine Baskin have been, and I know some others have also. We enjoyed many challenging conversations around their table with people from different groups, ethnic groups, economic groups, religious and political groups. Everyone was welcomed. The conversations were spirited, but always respectful. Everyone there felt heard and loved. We left that evening feeling inspired and determined and committed to make a difference on a daily basis. Charlie and Mary's spiritual and moral compass influenced everything they did. They were a dynamic duo. Their deep moral and spiritual commitment to God and to each other gave them a platform to share, to teach, and to encourage each of us to fulfill our God-given purpose here on this earth. Charlie is deceased, but Mary is just continuing on. Their 4 children today continue that tradition and are involved in their tradition and are involved in amazing endeavors to transform the world and lift up the least of these among us. Cleve and I are most grateful for Charlie's spirit and Mary's consistent presence in our lives, in this community, and in the world. I want to repeat again, truly an amazing and pioneer woman for this generation, Mary Babcock. And this is his son, Calvin Babcock, to accept her award.
Thank you, Cindy. My mom is an amazing woman, as Cindy just said, and I'm honored to be her favorite child. My 2 children are honored to be her 2 favorite grandchildren, and my 3 grandchildren are also honored to be her 3 favorite great-grandkids. You know, I asked my mother what she would like for me to say when I accepted this award on her behalf. And she said quite simply just to tell people that my dad and my mom's involvement here at Riverside House was simply to pick a great racehorse and support that horse. And that horse's name is Cleve Bell. And so that was their involvement here. And the great thing about that metaphor is that I've known Cleve for 45 years, but from now on, every time I speak to him, I will throw a racehorse metaphor into the conversation. Thank you for honoring my mother in this fashion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited about presenting this next award to J.D. Smith. My name is Willie Ferrer. I'm a partner at Holland & Knight, and before joining the firm, I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office for many years. The last 7, very privileged to be the U.S. Attorney for the South Florida area, which is where I met J.D. Smith. Now, J.D. Smith is a retired supervisor from the Detroit Police Academy Department in Michigan. And he did a lot of public corruption cases, ended up working in internal affairs. And when he joined our office in Miami at the U.S. Attorney's Office, he joined as a law enforcement community coordinator, something that people don't know much about at the U.S. Attorney's Office, because when you see the media, you hear about the prosecutions, the cases that are being brought. What people don't know is that there's J.D. Smith and his team that work every single day. So, we got the day job in terms of bringing the cases, enforcing the law, but he works on making sure that we also are a part of the solution of the cycle of crime, of helping returning citizens make sure that they have jobs and they have a way to reintegrate into society. And J.D. Smith and his team do so many things behind the scenes. He's like the unsung hero of the office. They bring programs to children. To come to the office, to learn about mock trials, to learn about the system. They talk to children who are on the border of whether or not they're going to drop out of high school or stay in school. They do resource fairs to talk about, helping reintegrating and returning citizens on how to fill out an application, how to do a resume, how to do a job interview, how to sustain yourself after you return to your society. And they read to children. They have learned through these violence reduction partnership that the office started, where they read to children in violence-plagued neighborhoods. Because, why do they do that? Because in 50% of the cases, if a child cannot read by the 3rd grade at their level, they either drop out or end up in the criminal justice system. Now, you ask yourself, how does one person make a difference? Let me show you, and let me tell you why he's getting this award. Because of JD and his team, over 88,000 students have gone through his program, middle school kids learning about the system. Because of JD, over 26,000 residents have been part of these resource fairs to learn about how to get jobs and sometimes even just to supply food and necessities to returning citizens. Because of JD, he takes 1 week a year from his family to work with young adults who are about to either get into problems or drop out. He spends 1 week, and it's called the Defy Camp, where he works with these children in making sure that they make the right choices. Because of JD, he is the point person for the reentry court, the first reentry court here in South Florida with Judge Seitz, Judge Williams, and others who have worked on that. That's JD, and because of JD, over 1,200 students every month get a book and they are read to. And when you walk into that room and you see these children, hug JD, because he's going to give them a book. For some of these kids, it's the only book they've ever gotten. And they hug him because he shows his love, his care for these children, because he wants them to have a good future. JD, you are a role model. You are somebody who helps strengthen the fabric of our society, and I'm proud to be your friend. Congratulations.
Thank you, Willie. I'd like to thank the Riverside Young Professionals for nominating an older guy for this award. When I first got the letter, I said, do they know how old I am? I'm closer to a senior citizen than a young professional, but I appreciate that. I appreciate my U.S. Attorney's Office friends. They're on both ends over there. My former boss, George Caravestis, is here. My current colleague, Marlene. My current boss, Harry Wallace, is here. So I appreciate all of you. I appreciate Willie especially in regards to the programs that he helped get started in 2011, the prevention and reentry programs. He said, you're going to be the coordinator of both of those things. And the reentry part I didn't understand too much about because as a former law enforcement officer, I did a lot of arresting people. And like John said, I never thought what happened to people when they got out. And now I understand, and Desmond Meade has talked to us as well at Care Court in regards to, guess what? Society makes you pay your time inside, and society sets up hurdles and barriers on the outside. And if all of us don't get involved in knocking down those barriers and hurdles, shame on us. But I appreciate this, and thank you very much.
This award recognizes outstanding support for the mission of reentry, but because this particular recipient is Assistant Federal Public Defender Helene Batoff, it could have just as appropriately been in recognition of an outstanding trial lawyer, an outstanding mentor, or an outstanding public servant. Lainey became a public defender in 2002, and in her nearly 17 years with the office, she has taken on the defense of the most serious federal criminal cases. And because of her experience and judgment, she was chosen to serve as our office's representative to Care Court. Needless to say, standing alongside her clients for 17 years, shielding their rights and shielding their dignity, Lainey brought a unique and important perspective to Care Court. Care Court was a new program, and for the program to be viable, it was critical that it, number one, be thoughtfully designed, and perhaps more importantly, that the Care Court team members, people like JD, that they actually believed that reentry was possible, despite all of the hurdles that incarceration can visit on a person. Lainey was the perfect person to fill this important role in Care Court's first 18 months. I followed Lainey around for 12 months as a mentee in the office, and there is not a lawyer in the Southern District of Florida that cares more for her clients. There is not a lawyer in the Southern District of Florida that exemplifies courage in every facet of life. Simply put, Lainey is one of the best people I know. So on behalf of the Riverside House and Young Professionals Board, it's my honor to present this award to AFPD Helene Batoff.
font in 14 point, but it looks like it's not going to be big enough, so. Thank you to Riverside House for this great honor and for all of the important work that you do for our returning citizens. With respect to Care Court, which stands for Court Assisted Reentry Program, I would first like to thank our federal public defender, Michael Caruso, for his vision to create a reentry court in the Southern District of Florida. Thank you also to Willie Ferrer, who as U.S. Attorney, through the support of his office behind the program and gave us Reentry Coordinator J.D. Smith, and AUSA Randy Hummel, who I don't think is here today. But without their assistance, we wouldn't have gotten the pilot program off the ground. I would also like to acknowledge the work of Assistant Federal Public Defender Sarah Kane, who could not be here today, and AUSA Hummel for their tireless work in creating and tweaking the foundation of the program. Thank you to Chief Probation Officer Kathy Coons for her support of Care Court, and Probation Officers Tanya Oken, Lynette Herrera, John Manelli, and Melissa Fife for their important work in being the day-to-day contact for our participants and for their support in helping the participants achieve their goals. Finally, none of this would have been possible without the leadership, perseverance, and patience of the Honorable Patricia A. Seitz. Judge Seitz's incredible energy and determination moved CARE Court from a pilot program into a permanent reentry court program within the Southern District of Florida. Watching her interact with the participants is both inspiring and heartwarming. I attended the 3-year anniversary of CARE Court yesterday and the graduation ceremony of one of our participants, Mr. Chisholm. He told a courtroom full of spectators that when he got out of prison, he decided that he could lose or he could win. CARE Court, he said, gave him a winning chance. Thank you to Judge Seitz and to everyone involved in CARE Court for giving our returning citizens a winning chance to succeed.
Good afternoon. I'm going to pull a Laney. I have the distinct pleasure of presenting Judge Williams with the next award. And I will tell you that as we were standing in the back and listening to all these amazing stories and the amazing people that have been awarded before, she asked me, why am I here? Well, let me tell you. I heard Judge Williams quote Brian Stevenson, who is a social and racial justice advocate, and he says, and she has quoted him, that we are much more than the worst thing that we have ever done. And she believes that. And that's evident from the way that she conducts herself in court, on the bench, and in her life. She was appointed to the federal bench in 2011 by President Barack Obama, and she brings a very unique perspective to that appointment because not only was Judge Williams an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of Florida for 4 years, prosecuting cases, she was our federal public defender in the Southern District of Florida from 1995 until 2011, when President Barack Obama elevated her to the bench. So when I think about the mission of reentry, and it's a goal, and I'm so pleased that there are AUSAs here, that there are defense attorneys here, because this is our mission together. And so when I think about reentry, and it's a goal that we should both have and be committed to, I think at the very ground of it is the recognition of someone else's humanity, no matter what that person is either alleged to have done or been convicted of. And I can tell you personally and professionally that practicing in front of Judge Williams, she sees my clients, she hears them, she recognizes the humanity that exists in every single person that comes before her, no matter what they stand convicted of. And no matter the result, and I'll tell you, sometimes I get what I ask for, sometimes I don't. But no matter the results, I always have clients tell me, I feel respected, I feel like she heard me, I feel like she saw me, and I feel that this was fair. And I think that successful reentry cannot happen without that. Successful reentry, when we want someone who's been previously incarcerated to get out, be in the community, and stand on their own 2 feet, it's going to take the recognition of their humanity from everyone involved, be it people in the criminal justice system, be it employers, family members. We have to look them in the eye and look past what they've done and help them put one foot in front of the other, and that is our job and our mission, and I'm so happy to have you all here today for it. But what I want to tell you about Judge Williams is that that recognition starts the day that they walk into her courtroom, and that is why I am so honored to present this award to Judge Williams.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. I need a 20 font because I think I'm older than JD. Thank you for the work of Riverside House and the extraordinary work of the men and women we've talked about before I came up here today. All of this is a gift to me that renews my faith in all of us, and I hope is a gift to all of you, to give you the resolve not to resign ourselves to cynicism or apathy or the idea that there is nothing that can be done. I try to do my job, but these men and women that have been honored before me, they are doing more, they are being more, they are asking more of themselves and of all of us in order to make a difference in the lives of people who need more, not only to get by, but to get ahead. And I was thinking about talking to all of you. You'll think I'm digressing. That superhero movies are very popular right now, quite the big franchise. And I'm guessing it's because all of us feel we need to be saved in some way. And the tagline in one of those movies is "Look up." That's Hollywood. We're here today, and all we have to do is look around or look next to you and see Lainey Batoff or J.D. Smith or Tom and Lauren Bayless or Yraida, and I'm going to mispronounce her name, Guanipa, who I'm so honored to be here today with, and the Babcock family. All of those people are saving us all by helping those who need it the most. A young man that I had the good fortune to work with has beat seemingly insurmountable odds to put, as he called it, his gang-banging, gun-toting ways behind him. Angel Sanchez, after prison, got his college degree, was accepted to law school, and his Harvard Law Review note was just published this week. And in it he writes, yes, a system that we can trust to punish, but not to restore those it punishes, can hardly be called a justice system. So by their efforts, these men and women that we've talked about before me are restoring not only the futures of individuals, but the futures of our institutions of justice. If I've made a contribution to any of this, it's because I've lived long enough and survived my own mistakes and my own foolishness to understand the truth of what one of my other heroes, Katie referred to him, Brian Stevenson, has so eloquently described in his book, Just Mercy. Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. We are all broken by something. We all share the condition of brokenness, even if our brokenness is not equivalent. Sometimes we're fractured by the choices we make. Sometimes we're shattered by things we would never have chosen. But our shared brokenness connects us. So many of us have become angry because we think it makes us seem tough and less broken. But there is no wholeness outside of our reciprocal humanity. The men and women you honor today understand this, and they are showing us how to find and open doors instead of building walls, how to restore and move forward instead of discarding, disenfranchising, and holding back, how to take the measure of a person by checking on his or her progress instead of checking a box, and how to recognize the broken pieces in each of us so that we can work together to create a wholeness for all of us. You are all the reason we celebrate today and look forward to a better future. And I am honored just to be here to share that with you. Thank you for the privilege.
Our next speaker is an illustrious alum of Riverside House. His name is Desmond Meade. He was instrumental in passing Amendment 4, and he's an attorney. Would you come up here, Desmond? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Hold on, that was a little weak. We're gonna try that. I need you all to speak in your courtroom voice. Good afternoon. That's a lot better. I'm gonna take a point of privilege. I'm typically a humble person, but I think that this occasion warrants me taking this point of privilege. I wasn't instrumental in the passage of Amendment 4. I led Amendment 4. And the reason why I say that is, with some of the comments that I heard today really speaks to why it is so important to support the work that's going on in the Riverside community, because sometimes, a lot of times, a real good investment are investments in which you do not see immediate returns. But boy, when those returns come, man, I tell you, it's an amazing thing. When you talked about Angel Sanchez and even the work that he's doing now and how he's playing an important part in the work of our organization. Yraida, that's doing some amazing work here in South Florida, also contributing to our organization, knowing that, listen, that broken man that walked in the door at the Riverside community, that when I remember Gustavo, who was the program director, he asked me why was I there, and I was like, well, I wanted to get clean, and I gave him some flowery speech, and at the end he said, bullshit. And remembering when, I was going through the program, and he told me I had to quit my job, and I just knew that he was just didn't like African Americans, and there was something wrong with him, and I walked off, and not too long after that, I relapsed. And eventually I found myself in front of railroad tracks, waiting on the train to come so I can jump in front of it. But the point being was that interaction when I walked in, that experience that I had when I walked into Riverside planted some seeds. And those seeds started to sprout at some point later on. And as a result of some of the life lessons and the inspiration, when I met Mr. Bell, and he's an accomplished guitar player, for those of you all who don't know, and he was playing those songs for us, and I looked at him as a strong African American man that went through some things that I've gone through, and to see him running the show gave me hope that, I don't always have to stay at the bottom because I was a drug addict. I don't always have to stay at the bottom because I served some time in prison, that I can dream, and I could dare to dream, and that's what I did. And so when at some point, we decided to dream much larger than anybody else thought we were able to dream. When the experts said that it could never happen, we did something special. And what we did was not just about re-enfranchising 1.4 million individuals. I think what's bigger than that was how we did it. When you think about that, we dealt with the issue of voting, we dealt with the issue of felons, we dealt with the issue in the state of Florida, right? And those three things just don't mix well, right? And we did it in a climate that was probably I've never seen in my lifetime that is as divisive and fearful as the climate that we're in now. And when we passed that amendment in November, we had over 5.1 million votes, right? And that was 1 million more than any candidate received on the ballot. What those votes represented, and this is the beautiful part, that there were not votes that was based on hate or even fear, but there were votes that was based on love, forgiveness, and redemption. That we as a people in the state of Florida got a chance to show the world that love can in fact win the day. And it did. It did. We got people from different backgrounds, from all walks of life, from all political persuasions, that came across and elevated above partisan politics, that elevated ourselves above racial biases or indifferences. And we met at this plane called humanity, that we understood that before a person committed a crime, that they were a person. We led with not what they did, but we led with how they were created as a human being, as a child of God. And we understood that we had to place people over politics. We understood that in order for us to have the community, to have the state, to have the country operate the way we would love for it to operate, that we had to connect along those lines. We knew that, you know, at the end of the day, and we see it during hurricanes, when after a hurricane hits Florida, or matter of fact, one of my favorite states, Texas, after a hurricane hits, we get a glimpse of that. When people come together and help each other out. And in Texas, I'll never forget the image of the African-American man in a boat that was rescuing someone because of the floods, a white man. And he stopped the boat to allow the white man to go back and get his Confederate flag. In that moment, the African-American man was able to overlook what that flag stood for, and what he seen was another human being in need. When we're going back home and we see an accident on the side of the road and we stop to help, we're not going to get out and run up to that person and the first question be, did you vote for Donald Trump? That first question is not going to be how much money you made, all right, or what is your criminal background. That first question is going to be, are you okay, and how can I help? It is in those moments that we are great. It's in those moments that our society does thrive. And that is what I believe that Riverside helps institute into people like me, is that, you know what, we're not our worst mistakes. We're better than that. And first and foremost, we are creations of some divine source. My source I choose to call God, right? And that we all ought to be treated with dignity and respect. I'll leave you with this because I'm in Miami. Dwayne Wade just retired, and I know many of us are sad that happened. But it also reflected a glorious time in our history when the Miami Heat was winning championships, right? And I'll never forget when Dwayne Wade was able to bring down LeBron James and Chris Bosh. Y'all remember that? Yes. Right? And there were some real skilled players. The three most skilled players on the team, and they made the most money on the team. Am I correct? Yes. But that season taught me something, especially when they won the championship, because what it taught me was that no matter how skilled they were, and no matter how much money they made, right, they could not win by themselves, right? That at some point, there were 5 people on that court, the starters. At some point in the game, the people on the bench would have to get in. Whether it's because Dwayne Wade, Bosh, or James got into foul trouble, whether they were tired, had an off night, or whether they got hurt. The bench would eventually have to get in the game. And we know from that shot that Ray Allen hit, in that deep corner, if it wasn't for that bench player, if it wasn't for the Birdman grabbing crucial rebounds, if it wasn't for Ray Allen hitting those crucial 3-pointers, the Heat would not have won that last championship. Am I correct? Correct. And so we know that at some point, because the bench players will get in the game, we need to make sure that they're prepared that when they get in the game, if there's a lead, that we keep the lead. If there's a deficit, we don't let the deficit get bigger, right? So we want them to hold it down until the starters get back in the game. And that is the significance of what we're dealing with in our society, because whether we like it or not, there's a couple players that's going to be getting in the game of life. There are youth, eventually they will be getting in the game, and there are returning citizens, because at some point, 95+% of us is going to be released back into our community. And so it is in our self-interest that we do whatever we can to empower and remove obstacles and help facilitate successful reentry, because they're getting in the game, and it is impossible for us to be a champion society or a champion city or a champion county or a champion district unless we empower our bench players. So thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you, Riverside. Thank you, Young Professionals, for inviting me. Thank you to all the honorees, with a special twist thank you to Yraida. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all next year. Amen.
Well, what do you think? I think we're all on the right track. I really think we're on the right track, and I'm grateful because today I'm here because of folks like you in this room that invested in me based on potential. Not on actual, on potential. I'll never forget, and I'll let you go real quickly, but I was thinking the other day in terms of giving people a second chance. I remember when the homeless when the homeless situation became a big issue in Dade County, Albert Chapman, who was then chairman of Knight Ridder, decided to take on that issue. And we decided to work with him together, and on one occasion, when we were putting together the 5 years, the strategic plan for homelessness, Albert Chapman asked me would I sit on the strategic planning committee. Just between you and I, at that point I wasn't even sure what a strategic plan was. But I knew that because Albert asked me that the next time I saw Albert, I should be able to answer that question. And of course I went out and did my work, and when I came back, I made a plan and presented the plan to the committee that Albert was with, and some of the people in the room didn't like the plan. And Albert listened to everybody, and Albert said at the end, Cleve said, this is the way we should go strategically, and this is the way we're gonna go. And so today we have, as a result of that, a 1 cent sale tax on all food establishments over $400,000 that now generates between 18 and 20 million a year for homelessness. We then take that, parlay that with the HUD for another 30 million, and today we're providing $55 million of services to the homeless community here in Dade County. Simply because a guy named Albert Chapman saw a potential, even though I wasn't sure what he wanted. But we got it. And I'm saying that to say, keep supporting, keep giving. Remember, small steps is what it is necessary. If you want to make changes, one of the things that I've learned over the years, if you want to make changes, you will not do it in 2 or 3 years. Some of the changes that we see and we talk about today, we have been working on these changes for 35 years. And when they come, they're sweet. And it gives us courage to keep fighting. So again, thank you, and hope that all you have a great day. Thank you. A special thanks to Carrie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was very kind, Mr. Bell. I would like the young professionals and the Riverside House staff to stand because we couldn't do it without all of you. So please stand.